apartheid, black South Africans were stripped of citizenship and dumped in areas so-called Bantustan, homelands like the Transkei. These Bantustans were claimed to be self-governing. They had no real power, no sovereignty, no recognition, no resources. In Australia today, Aboriginal community exists in a similar legal vacuum. The Constitution, even after 120 years, still refuses to recognize Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first people of Australia. The 1967 referendum allowed the federal government to make laws about them, but never said anything about making laws with them. Different here. Make laws about them, not make laws with them. Huge difference in this language here. Alright, so in South Africa, black South Africans had no say in the laws that governed them during apartheid South Africa. Bantustan elections were a sham, controlled by the apartheid system, the apartheid state. In Australia, the 2023 Voice to Parliament referendum failed. Peaceful proposal to give Indigenous people of a non-binary advisory body, which was actually rejected. Aboriginal Australians still have no guaranteed national representation. The last national Indigenous body, the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander Commission, was abolished in 2005, and nothing replaced that. That one was abolished by the Australian government. Alright, so after that there was nothing that replaced that. Yeah. So Bantustans were made of scattered, dry, non-farmable land, unfarmable land. Black South Africans were forced off in their ancestral territory into these fragments of these lands. Today you would hear us speak about these townships. They are the Bantustan, the township, and other areas. In Australia, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, their land is governed by the native title law. Now, but this native title law can be extinguished at any time by governments or mining corporation. Traditional owners must often beg for consultations, and even when they say no, projects still go ahead. You know, I saw the video. The reason why I'm saying this, because I saw a video on TikTok, and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander person was talking about, the lady was talking about this, and I was stunned. And I'm just somebody who's actually do a lot of history. I do study history a lot, And I've actually, you attend a lot of these cultural awareness courses. This is the first time I heard of this. I know there's a lot of stuff that happened, but actually, when I look at it now, when after hearing that TikTok, and I had to come back and do my research and look at it, and actually, it's so similar to apartheid South Africa. So similar. Stunning. Similar. Holy crap. And we just explain why the Afrikaner like to come to Australia. It's actually explained. That makes sense. Why a lot of them are here. It is similar to apartheid South Africa. So similar. Okay? Very similar. Now, what is more? Let's continue. So, the policing and control, how the policing of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community, it is similar to how apartheid South African government policies we're policing these community, this black community in Australia, in South Africa. So the apartheid South Africa used pass law, they call them pass law, okay, and police to control the black lives. Literally, black lives were controlled by this pass law. Now, the Australian uses a different tactic. It's what they're using in now is over policing and incarceration. That's what they do. It's over policing and over incarceration. So the Aboriginal Australians are the most incarcerated people on earth per capita. Kids as young as 10-year-old are jailed in places like the Don Dale. The Northern Territory interventions brought in troops and banned alcohol and pornography without consent, and it's still in place today. So when you hear people say, oh, Donald Trump brought troops into LA, we in the NT, there's still an intervention that brought in the troops, and there's alcohol ban and pornography without consent. We're not going to talk about, the issue about, the good and bad of the alcohol, whatever. This is about consent. That be a human being, be able to self-determine yourself, to consent how you want to live. Today, Northern Territory, they still have troops intervening, and they still have banned alcohol and pornography without consent. That is still in place today. This is not freedom, that is surveillance. Similar what you're seeing now in America, but we've been living that. This is specifically in the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community. This stuff. If I hadn't actually seen this, saw that clip on TikTok, I wouldn't have, thought about looking into this, because under the 1913 Land Act, similar to that, Australia had also restricted Aboriginal people their land rights until the Marble versus Queensland in 1992. Before that, Australia operated under the Terra Nullius, the lie that the land belonged to no one before colonialisation. That would be similar when apartheid government told the world that there was a Bantu migration when the Dutch settled in South Africa in 1652. There were other Bantu people, meaning the black people coming from the north of Africa, they all landed and came together in Cape Town in a similar fashion. When the Dutch were coming on the other side, the black people were coming, and then they all landed in Cape Town. So South Africa, everyone comes from everywhere in South Africa, according to these white supremacists. But until then, there was this kingdom that was found and hidden, that was found in Limpopo, the Mapungubwe Kingdom, which predated the colonialization, predated any Dutch settlers date, and they hid that Mapungubwe kingdom from public. Yeah. So I will talk about that Mapungubwe kingdom, what was found in that Mapungubwe kingdom that broke the lie about this Bantu migration. So if you hear somebody talk about Bantu migration, that is the same as Australia is a Terra, because they are denying the rights of Indigenous black South African of their land. It's a form of racist ideology. Someone say that Bantu migration. It's uttered by a lot of people because people aren't educated about the history, and history has often been hidden, and some of the history has been removed so that it actually paints this wonderful, great picture of how great colonialization was. But when you read it and you realize, holy crap. Anyway, now another thing that is similar, apartheid South Africa was similar to Australia, is that no voting rights or political representation for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, similar to South African, black South African. The black South Africans were denied to vote, and they all hold office until 1994. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people could not vote in federal elections until 1962 referendum, and only became compulsory from 1984. Until 1967 referendum, they weren't even counted in census. They didn't count, similar to what South Africa did anyway. So another thing is this cheap labor without rights, similar to South Africa. In both countries, black and Indigenous people were used as cheap unpaid labor, denied protection, and excluded from industrial rights and union. And that is something that you see all of these white Afrikaner in South Africa that are using now for exporting these black immigrants from neighboring country to work without any rights in order not to pay the indigenous black South African minimum wage that is allowable after the end of apartheid in 1994. Remember, when apartheid ended 1994, that means cheap labor. There was an end of cheap labor or unpaid labor in South Africa for black Indigenous South Africans. So now what you're seeing these white wealthy business owners in South Africa hiring these cheap labor black immigrants from Africa to work in these areas so that they don't have to pay them anything, because many of them are undocumented. They don't have any rights to be in South Africa. They're afraid to be arrested. They would work there, and because whatever they give them, they couldn't go to the police and claim that somebody hasn't paid me, because when they get there, the police will request their identity, who they are, then find out they're illegal in the country, and then deport them, send them to immigration officer to deport them. So they've found a loophole to hire these people so that they don't have to pay the black Indigenous South Africans their rights, the minimum amount of basic salary and paid for the benefits, unemployment, and all of that. So this is that is still continuing now, because apartheid created a structural system. Because unlike the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, the black South Africans are a majority. So when the 9 or 7% of them own 80% of the land and 80% of the resources, what do you think would happen? See? So yeah. So anyway, that is similar and very similar. So now, and also Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, they were also in World War II, and also both countries, the apartheid South Africa and Australia, they also sent their black and indigenous people men to the World War II, but they denied them the benefits when they returned back. They returned to the whole racist land and exclusion, similar to the black South Africans who participated in World War II, and they weren't given any recognition. So the bottom line is Australia had apartheid in all, but they didn't name it apartheid. Many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians say they still live in structural apartheid today, in housing inequity, health, education, higher incarceration, and also access to country. So the higher incarceration is the highest. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people experience higher incarceration per capita in the world. To today, 2025, and that is to do with this. Today, they still are not. The government doesn't have to ask their consent to govern the areas that that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people live. The referendum that they did in 1967 was just to give the government to be able to govern them, but not to govern with them. That's quite different. You have to understand, it's to govern them, not to govern with them. Okay? So it also just gave them a bit of rights to vote, but it also excluded them to be recognized in the Australian Constitution. To today, until 2025, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are not recognized as the first people of this land, of the First Nation of Australia. Alright? So I actually saw this video on TikTok, and what she's saying is similar to apartheid South Africa. And then I went back home, obviously, like I do my research, and I realized, I was like, holy crap, that is apartheid. So I would be very interested to hear all you Mzansi people, what do you think? Do you think it's spot on, it's apartheid? Just they didn't call it apartheid, but I think it is apartheid, similar to apartheid. Remember the UN called apartheid a crime of humanity? Yes. Yep. So remember the Aboriginal people also, they lived in the areas that were governed by the government, that areas that were away from productivity for them to be able to either own farms, have their own businesses, and into these crowded areas. They also did that in Australia. And even today, some of these communities still haven't got any access to proper schools, clean water, and healthcare in some of the homelands in Australia, that they're still very much underfunded and very over-policed and tightly regulated. Yes, northern, and they still today, from 2007 until today, they still, in Australia, still has the Northern Territory interventions that impose federal controls and which ban alcohol and pornography, and also seized land leases, and also uses military force and police. That was initiated without any community consent. So that is similar to apartheid's past laws, and that apartheid past law was similar to that. But this one still exists in Northern Territory. There's stuff of this past law of controlling people, imposing control over what they should drink, alcohol ban, and pornography, and also seizing their land, the land leases, and using military and police in the area. This was done without community consent. Okay, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander are the most incarcerated people on earth per capita, and the youth are jailed at 18 times the rate of non-Indigenous youth. Yeah, they just didn't call it apartheid, but it is similar to apartheid. You know, if I hadn't seen this video online, yeah, but this is not history, people. This is happening now in real time, and we must name it. We must change it, and we must stand in solidarity against it. If I didn't see this video from the TikTok, I'll play her video now so you guys can listen. I was like, what? That's like, is she for real? This is like apartheid South Africa. What are you talking about? And yeah, similar like that, the structure. Because when you go and do this cultural awareness, they don't tell you this stuff. It's actually whitewash. The cultural awareness that you go when you come in, especially if you're in the healthcare like I am, they teach you that you have to learn about this closing the gap and what is the government is trying to do, which is great. You know, I'm all for this equity and trying to close the gap. But you don't get to know all of this history yourself, because it's really a whitewash, the history about it. It's made it so that it's comfortable to tell. But when you hear it and you look at it and read it, it's like, yeah, this is apartheid. As a South African expat, South African Australian, it's like, okay, this is apartheid. And actually, another thing you have to realize, why I was just actually wondering, why are so many white Afrikaners likes to come to Australia? And now I realize, now I've actually found the answer why. Yep, I found the answer, people. Comment below, Mzansi people. Anyway, let's listen to the latest video, and then yeah, please comment below and let me know what do you think about what I just told you.
1988 to 1992, that the world was told that Australia was empty and justifying land grants. If that's the case, why am I here? Why were my grandparents here? Why were their grandparents here? Why are we still here? Because I'm not you. Did you know in 1800s to present time, free or cheap labour leases were given to white settlers, allowing them to claim massive areas? Did you also know that during the 1918 to 1950s, when World War I and World War II, when soldiers came back from there, white soldiers, they got free land? But what were Aboriginal soldiers given? Nothing. They were given nothing. And you can see that based on the New South Wales state records on soldier settlement. If you want to read that, look that up. Shows blackfellas were completely excluded. We were also forced onto missions and reserves, restricting us from our own land. So how was that free land? We're grouped into one space. I know that because my grandparents were. And I know that because my friends' grandparents were, you know? Close people we know. We were also banned from applying for land grants after war, so if we fought for the country, we did stuff for the country, we didn't get any rewards back, but we did get put back in our missions and settlements over there, right? Forcing more trauma upon these people. We were also denied native title until 1992, not necessarily saying that native title is amazing, but it's helped a lot of people, you know? What else happened? Did we forget about in the 1900s to the 1970s? There was the Protection Acts. Government controlled all Aboriginal wages. Did you know that? That's provided? The Queensland Stolen Wages Inquiry in 2006 provided that information. Did you know how I knew that? My grandparents didn't get paid. And I said that, but people didn't listen. I had a direct contact, but you have to have factual information for people to understand before you tell people, because people don't trust you. Like what you did when you commented. From 1900s to the 1980s, up to $500 million in wages stolen from black fellas working on cattle stations, domestic services, and government programs. Once again, find this in the National Archives. Documents show how wages were put in trust funds, but we never saw them ever. So when you guys say that these programs were doing and that money, it's still happening today. We're not seeing that money. There's heaps of records proving that. And you have to actually keep going to work through those systems to create us to actually get our wealth. What about free housing and ownership? We always get free houses and ownership, apparently. That's why I want to prove this point. You got, after post-war, housing support and schemes were at an all-time high. First home buyer grants were available. Inherited property and wealth. But what were we done? What were we forced to do? Live on missions and reserves. No private property. We were denied home loans until 1970s. My mum was born in 1969. My aunties were born earlier. Make that make sense. We were also pushed out of our own communities, and we are still getting pushed out of our own communities, but you guys don't know that because you live in your little boxes. And when you mix communities together, it is not okay. We all have different laws. LORES. And if you can't respect that, it doesn't make any sense, because you respect Europe, don't you? You respect the fact that they don't all get along. All have the same rules and regulations, you know? Why can't you respect that with us? This is proven in the Housing Commission records, if you want to go look that up too. And then I always get told I get free money. But age pensions from 1909 were only available to white people. Dole payments from 1930s that we are told that we're all living on were only given to white families after the Great Depression. Do you not think we were affected by the Great Depression either? There were family benefits and child allowances for them to have children, to continue to have children. Free money, right? We were excluded, blackfellas were excluded from pensions and welfare until the 1950s to the 1960s. If we did get welfare, it was controlled by government authorities. And this is proven in IATSIS reports, show racial exclusions in welfare policies from those times. We also have to go down to the free healthcare that we get all the time, right? White Australians had free access and full access to public healthcare and medical care. They also had Medicare and universal healthcare from 1984. But what did we get? We were banned from many hospitals, had to go to underfunded native hospitals. Child mortality rates are higher because we couldn't access proper care. But not only can we not access proper care, we don't get the right care when we get talked to by these people in these areas because they're not actually qualified. Imagine giving medication to an elder. That's silly. This person probably has never touched that type of medication in their life. I feel like that's common sense. But that's common sense to me. But if you tell those people that, they get offended because you're talking over them and you don't know anything to them, because that's the society we raise. The Aboriginal people actually don't know anything about our own bodies because you guys have always had autonomy over us. We don't have any autonomy over ourselves. And it feels like a domestic violence relationship, if I could say so myself. You can look at that, though, in the National Archives of Segregated Hospitals. Free war benefits. Free land through soldier settlement schemes, war pensions and medical benefits. Blackfellas got no land grants, faced racism when returning home, didn't even get any medallions to say that they fought. They didn't get any of the denied war pensions. Did you know that after war, you do get this thing called PTSD because of the guns, everything that's happening in those spaces? So imagine giving everyone else all that help, but then forcing others to still be in this society now and not helping them after those situations. Yeah, that's exactly what these systems do to us, right? And you can check that in the Australian War Memorial records, okay? And then there was this free legal protections. White Australians got free legal rights. No racial restrictions on movement. Rarely police for just existing. But what do we get? We are controlled under Protection Acts. Couldn't even leave missions without permission. My grandparents for them to marry, they had to ask for permission. For them to do anything, they had to act like a child and ask for permission. The exemption certificate system, if you wanted to live like a white person, you had to deny your black identity and sign a document. You had to invalidate your identity for safety. Sick people you are. And we were criminalized for our culture, so if we wanted to speak language, practice culture, even being certain towns, it was illegal to be dark. How crazy. Imagine existing in this country and then people coming in and telling you you can't exist in this country because they just came here. That was under the Protection Act laws from 1909 to 1960s. It was a legal framework that controlled our lives. So I just wanted to make it real clear, we do not get these free benefits that everyone is speaking about. And this is why these ideologies are getting pushed and commented under my things, and I'm not going to react nicely because
And also, yeah, just your comment about it. Stay on topic, please. Don't talk about things that are not on topic, okay? If it's not on topic, we'll delete it. We've got an AR called Sophie, so just go there and delete it. All right, thank you guys. Have a lovely day. Bye for now.
We have been speaking about it. The information is there, but you guys don't want to take any accountability and actually go and research these documents because you actually don't care. But you want to comment and put more ideologies out there for other kids and younger generations to see that and go, oh, let's keep saying that to them because it triggers them. Let's continue it. But that is your ways of knowing and being and doing, apparently. I've seen it my whole life. My mom's seen it her whole life. My grandparents seen it her whole life. So I just wanted to clear that up, okay? It was never a fair race. You got the free things, but you want to target us because it's your projection, because you can't make something out of when you got all these free things, you know? You got all these free things, yet you're still in the same position as you were before, right? But I didn't. I didn't get all these free things. And I'm not in the position my family were in before, so it's going to trigger you and it's going to hurt you. And that's okay. My existence hurts white people's existence because look internally why that is the reason, right?